Hey, we just got a major update on Steph Curry's back injury after that nasty fall he had in last night's win against the Raptors. The results of the MRI have been released by the Warriors medical staff. And in today's video, I'll break down the results, exactly what they found in the MRI, and just how bad this injury is for Steph and the Warriors. I'll also do a breakdown on other NBA players who suffered similar injuries and how much time they missed, plus the implications this is all going to have on the Warriors playoff push. Welcome to Warriors Digest. Tons to get into today. I'm Arthur Ballesteros. Before we get into it, I'm going to need you to hit subscribe right now. I want you to join the nearly 10,000 subscribers in the Warriors Digest community so you can stay up to date on all the latest Warriors news and commentary from myself, Arthur Ballesteros, and the OG of the channel, Randy Silver. Hit subscribe right now. Look at this. Like, less than 30% of you watching right now are subscribed. Just get in here. We got a lot to go over, so let's get into it today. This was the report by Anthony Slater here this morning as we got the news. Steph will not travel with the Warriors to Atlanta today. MRI confirmed a pelvic contusion. He will miss Saturday's game at the Hawks. Reevaluated on Monday. Warriors' 6-game trip continues on Tuesday night in Miami. This was a huge sigh of relief. I think all Warriors fans who were watching that game last night or who caught up this morning, when you saw the impact, when you heard the crack, everybody was worried. Pelvic fracture, tailbone fracture. Obviously, Steph's been struggling through back injuries. He had to miss the game against the Bucks. This was his first game back after missing that one game because of the nagging back injury. And then just the worst thing that could happen. Let's take a look at the video here, because if you haven't seen it yet, it's pretty, shocking here. So Steph is, getting to the lane there. He's got a nice pass over to Kuminga, but boom. This was the instant where I was like, this is bad. And you immediately start to think, although I don't know, I'm an anxious person. I always go to the worst case scenario. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, boom, out for the season. He's done. I start, crying. I'm panicking. But I had to collect myself because you just never know what can happen. In today's news, the MRI news was actually great. They say that, there's no structural damage. There's no fracture there. It's a contusion, which is just, fancy medical speak for a bruise. So he's got a tailbone bruise. I was looking around and different medical experts were kind of weighing in on this. And a lot of times the estimate can be 1 to 3 weeks. It really depends on the severity. Now, we know Steph has that back injury. And I saw a number of the doctors who were commenting that once you already have a pre-existing back injury and then you have an injury like this, a pelvic contusion, it can just really complicate things, and it's really uncharted territory. But there's only 12 games left in the season. So he's going to miss tonight in Atlanta and be reevaluated on Monday. They're basically saying right now that he could miss several games. The Warriors have a choice on their hands here now because they could hold him out until the playoffs. We just don't know. It's still really early. And I was digging some more, trying to get some information on pelvic contusions. Apparently, they're relatively uncommon in the NBA, which is surprising to me. But there were a number of players who had similar injuries back in the 2015 season. Bradley Beal, he missed a number of games with a sprained pelvis, which is worse than Steph's injury. Beal ended up missing 27 games. Now, he had a couple of other nagging injuries, so that contributed to it as well. So that's kind of on the worst case scenario. I also did find an instance where LaMarcus Aldridge back in 2014, this was the closest thing I could find. He suffered a lower back contusion. He missed 7 games in that. Now, different player, bigger body, may take him longer to recover. Also, he was younger than Steph back at that time. When he suffered the injury. The severe worst case scenario, which I was worried about, was the Chet Holmgren injury. He suffered a pelvis fracture back in November of 2024. He missed 39 games because of that. So now, when we look at the situation here with the Warriors and their depth chart, what are the Warriors going to do? Now, as you saw, after he was out of the game last night, you saw Jimmy Butler running point a lot. You've got a lot of great options. Now that you've got Brandin Podziemski back from his back injury, you could slide him into the point spot and then kind of move everybody down a little bit. Have Brandon start at point, Moses Moody start at shooting guard, Jimmy Butler start at small forward, and then get Quinten Post in at center so you can move Draymond into the 4. I could also see a scenario where, you're starting Jimmy at the point guard. Steve Kerr loves to mix and match his lineups. We know this. So lots of different options that you can play with here. And hey, look, the Warriors responded really well last night to the injury, which just for a moment sucked the air out of the Chase Center. Good teams respond like this, just like I was talking about before. Good teams don't lose 2 in a row. I know Randy has preached that as well. You saw the Warriors, they had that embarrassing loss to the Nuggets. They respond without Steph for a dramatic win against the Bucks. Good teams step up when their star goes out, and that's what the Warriors do and did to close out what it was a way closer game than it should have been, even before the Steph injury. But the rest of the team really rallied, stepped up. You see Jimmy Butler getting another triple-double there. They really stepped up, got the win, and has shown that they have heart. They can win without Steph. I know a lot of people, I constantly see as soon as the injury happened, I'm checking Reddit, I'm checking Twitter, and everybody's like, don't worry, we got Jimmy, we got Jimmy. So, we have a secondary star, which is something that we haven't had for a while, so who can help carry the load here. But this is going to be a tall order here as they were at home, 7 games in a row, couple of hiccups, only 1 loss. They were 6-1, which was great, which is what I predicted. After I initially had predicted they were going to go 5-2 and lose to the Nuggets and the Bucks, but then I revised it 6-1. I said, no way they lose back-to-back games. They didn't. 6-1. I know Randy nailed his prediction right out of the gate. But now we've got a scenario where you've got 6 on the road. So tomorrow in Atlanta, no Steph for sure. Now, he's going to be reevaluated on Monday, which means he could potentially come back as early as the Miami game. Why? We don't need it. I don't want to see him back. I don't want to see him back against New Orleans. That's a terrible team. No reason you can win that game without him. I don't want to see him back against San Antonio. You can win without it. I don't care if he's healthy. Steph was trying to get back on the court last night. Not a good move. I don't care if he's fully healthy. Keep him out against these teams. Now, where it gets interesting here is you could really use him for this stretch, the last 2 road games against Memphis and Los Angeles. If Steph is fully healthy and ready to go, sure, I want to see him back to be able to play against those 2 teams who are above us right now in the standings. But if he's not healthy, or even if he is, I don't want to see him back against these bad teams, especially New Orleans and San Antonio. Let Jimmy go off in Miami and go off and go crazy, have his homecoming party. Let him handle it. Steph, stay down for a little while, because I do know that a lot of people, and I kind of concur with this sentiment, Steph shouldn't have been playing last night to begin with. Steph probably shouldn't have been playing against the Nuggets because of this lingering back injury that he had before this more serious pelvic contusion. A lot of people are pointing the blame at Steve Kerr for running him out there, but I don't think you can singularly place the blame anywhere. You know, Steph is a competitor. He wants to get out there. He wants to play. I'm just saying right now, against some of this lower level competition, even if he's good to go, I don't want to see him out there. It's not worth it right now in the moment. Now, if he's fully healthy and we're clawing to get into that 5th, 4th spot, maybe it's going to be worth it as it goes on a little bit here. But, as we look at the standings here, the Warriors are in relatively good shape. They've held the 6th spot there. The best news that they have gotten recently is that the Timberwolves have lost 2 in a row. You see the Clippers, though, they're still on a 4-game win streak, but the teams ahead of them, this is where it gets really interesting. Memphis has lost 2 in a row. You see the Warriors are 2 games back now of Memphis, but also the Lakers have lost 2 in a row. They've lost 1, but there's a potential to maybe hop into that 4th spot here, even without Steph in the lineup. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens here. We are all going to be waiting on bated breath for update. I'm tired. My anxiety has been through the roof. This was a blessing in disguise to get this tweet from Anthony Slater that it's just a pelvic contusion. But we're all going to be holding our breath until Monday when we get that update, when he's reevaluated. We'll see what happens then. This could have major implications going forward here into the playoffs. But my hope is that he spends as much time on the sidelines as he need. If we don't see Steph until the playoffs, I'm okay with that. At least let's get there to the playoffs, not the play-in. Let's maintain our 6th spot here. And maybe we don't see it to the playoffs. And if you remember, a number of times, Steph has responded really well after having injuries late in the season and coming back just for the playoffs. It's happened a couple of times. He's done really well. He's been playing amazing up until the back injury that he first started getting in Detroit. But he will come back. This is good news. We'll wait for the updates. Thanks for watching Warriors Digest. We'll talk to you later. As soon as some news breaks, we'll have it for you. Peace.